We're going live. Hi, and welcome back to the Take 2 Minutes live stream. This week we have Heather and myself, Marc Fassel, and we are missing Jamie this week, but Ashley's going to still be our moderator and ask the questions that we have received from visitors and viewers. So, Ashley, over to you.
Cool. Yeah, we have a good mix this week between mental health, that mind-body connection as it comes into terms with nutrition, and then we had a couple about take 2 minutes specifically. So again, we're going to start with a take 2 minutes one. So this one's for you, Marc. How does take 2 minutes approach? How interesting. How does take 2 minutes approach to mental health differ from other apps, and what makes its techniques and strategies effective?
That's a good question. There's a lot of mental health apps out there. And I've been on a lot of podcasts recently talking about some of the differences. And something I'll start with is that Take 2 Minutes, as people may or may not know, is a nonprofit. And my goal really is to help people. And I start with that because I think there's no one app which is the right app for everybody. That's the beauty of having, I think there's something like 10,000 different apps out there for mental health. And I think that's the good thing about having that many options is ideally you can find one that is more suited for your liking. Being I developed Take 2 Minutes, obviously I have a little bit of a preference to it. And I would say that the differences it offers is it does have a lot of functionality, meaning that in talking to therapists, I quite often hear that they've tried other apps, and other apps will have gratitude journaling or meditations or sleep journaling. Take 2 Minutes has all of those in addition to a three good things activity, in addition to the modified differential emotion scale questionnaire, so people can rate their negativity against their positivity. I think the point being is Take 2 Minutes has a lot of features, whereas many of the apps focus on one or two of the different features. One of the features of Take 2 Minutes that's a real differentiator, I believe, is the gratitude challenge. The gratitude challenge is really great for people who want to start gratitude journaling or wanting to start a gratitude exercise, or also people who are fighting a little bit with depression, because in talking to therapists and counselors and individuals who are in a negative space, if you ask them to gratitude journal, they sit down with pen or paper or even an app like Take 2 Minutes, and they have nothing to say. They have enough negativity or depression they can't think of something to come up with, and they just pass. They don't write anything down at all. Whereas the gratitude challenge is created in part of Take 2 Minutes prompts you for something that you should be grateful for. And the example I use time and time again is one of the prompts says the sun provides light and warmth to our planet. Think of a reason why you like the sun. And so those prompts, and there's about 180 of them in the system, makes you think about something or think about a topic and consider why you are grateful for that topic. In doing this day in and day out, ideally you're going to do it for 12, 14, 20 days. You're going to get into a pattern or a recognition of gratitude. Most of the individuals who went through this as like a test found that after about 12 days, they started just recognizing gratitude in their normal daily lives without the prompts. So as we've talked about in the past, they've primed their mind to start recognizing that gratitude. So I think the gratitude challenge is a very huge activity which can greatly help people. Then lastly, without giving too long of an answer, Take 2 Minutes does use text messaging for the communication instead of an app notification. And that was done very purposely because app notifications only have about a 24% read rate, meaning that the difference is people who ignore their app notifications. So 76% of the people either have app notifications turned off or just don't read app notifications. Whereas in my mind, if someone is using the app to really get help, to really use the app, you want to communicate with them, and text messaging is the best way to do so because people are going to read their text messages. Text messages have a 92% read rate within 3 minutes.
I found the unmute. So I was just making notes as you were talking, and so it's essentially like a personal development or mental health journey app, essentially with hands-on guidance, which is something I haven't seen anywhere else either, which I really like. Because a lot of them are either just tailored to people who are beginners, but they're not very personalized. They're kind of like mass marketed with videos that may or may not pertain to you. And so I do like the personalized aspect of Take 2 Minutes. And the other thing that I've seen in Take 2 Minutes that's different than other apps is gratitude journaling as a concept is very simple, I think. But what I've really gotten hooked on is the image aspect. So for me, I've tried gratitude journaling before in the past, and it's kind of like, yeah, I'll get to it later. But I don't know, the visual aspect of having to take a photo every day and then write something you're grateful for, it's really easy to look back without having to read. It's very skimmable. And it's a nice way, at least for me, to romanticize my life. I know we did a project with Take 2 Minutes for that, a behind the scenes of how we practice self care. And I think that's what sparked it. And so being able to do that with Take 2 Minutes and having it be so easy is something that I haven't seen anywhere else.
Oh, good. I appreciate that addition. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, this one was for Jamie. And so because we don't have the authority, I guess, to answer from a licensed counselor or, healthcare professional perspective, I'm still interested to hear yours and Heather's story on one of these or both. So I'll just ask and, we'll see how it goes. The first question is, my mom is a very negative person and I feel stressed out being around her. I don't feel like I can cut her off. What can I do instead? So, do either of you have stories of something similar, or maybe this specific scenario to maybe help this person out or make them feel less alone?
I think we all have that family member or those people. One of the things that, again, not my scope of practice, but my story, would be that, in dealing with negative people or people who are constantly saying negative things or my thing is I want to understand them. So I'm quick to listen and slow to speak. And they're having these negative comments for a reason, right? I mean, so it's like, okay, just trying to really set up my own guard. Like, okay, this is not against me. This is just something that they're venting and they're having, unfortunately, they have bitter root. And and if anything, I try to the conversation to something else or say, well, that might have happened, or maybe just think about something else. Like, I try to give suggestions, but a lot of times people, if they're being negative, they really don't want to hear your suggestions. They're just wanting to vent, right? So I think just having that mindset of your own, like, how can you take care of your own home and your mind in your responses, yeah.
I like that answer. And I like the idea of listening a little bit more. I also say I know Jamie would actually answer this partly with recognizing or setting boundaries. Again, I'm not Jamie and I'm not a counselor, but setting boundaries and knowing the boundaries you set is always important in this situation.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, healthy boundaries, right? And
Yeah.
especially if it's this person said their mom, like that's tough because that, how do you set a boundary with your mom? But I'm sure Jamie would have, maybe next week we'll have some great ideas for us on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Marc, your answer kind of, I guess, leads to the next question that was for Jamie. So to really poke holes in this, how can I prioritize my mental health when I feel bad saying no to people? So kind of in that same vein of trying to set those boundaries, I feel like is very similar to saying no to people. So have either of you experienced that where you just were at your, the end of your line and you had to prioritize your mental health and say no, and felt guilty? And how did you handle that?
I'm gonna go back to something I've heard Jamie say before, and I'm not gonna get this right, but oh boy, it's on the tip of my tongue. I know, but the ultimate comes down to taking care of yourself is not being selfish. Taking care of yourself is helping you be better for people who are around you or who are influencing you. So, point being is you have to focus sometimes on yourself internally more than externally, so that when you are in these situations, or even when you're around loved ones, anyone, you're a better person because you've already taken care of yourself. You're in a better state of mind. You're in a better position to be around those people and give them attention. I know one thing he said was, and I'm using Jamie again when I say he, that I really liked was taking time for yourself allows you to be more present when you're around others or loved ones or family or whoever it may be, kids, mothers, anyone. You're more present and you are in a better position, in a better mood around them because you've taken time for yourself. So I think saying no isn't a bad thing. Setting those boundaries isn't a bad thing, and you're probably more able to do so once you have taken time for yourself. And taking time for yourself can come in one of many forms. We've talked about, take 2 minutes. There's many activities such as meditation. You can use meditations to start taking time for yourself. Taking time for yourself could be walking your dogs in the morning. It could be exercises. It could be just going for walks. Heather, it could be eating right. Taking time to make your proper food throughout the day so you're eating healthy. These are all things you can do for yourself to take time for yourself that'll help you get into a better place mentally so you're more prepared to take on the challenges that life's going to throw at you.
So sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said amen.
So I guess that leads me to that next thing. I know a lot of people who struggle with boundaries. It usually comes from a sense of guilt of saying no. So what activities in Take 2 Minutes then can help when those feelings of guilt become really overwhelming? What features or what activities can they use to help kind of self-cope?
It's a good question. I think we've talked about on here before, I'm going to go back to gratitude journaling. If you're recognizing gratitude, it's hard to have negativity at the same time because you're recognizing something positive. There's gratitude being recognized, so it's hard to have that negative thought or negative feelings in your mind at the same time. So I think gratitude journaling is terribly important. Meditation's always a good way to get more centered and focused and into a calm state. Meditation is something that I don't even do anymore all the time. I do it periodically. I know if I went back, I don't know, let's say when I started to Take 2 Minutes, so 6-7 years ago, I was trying to meditate maybe daily, if not even 4 times a week. But as I got into a better mental state and as I got into a place where I was just more calm naturally, that started dwindling down. And now it's just I do it when I feel like I need it. And again, using Take 2 Minutes as an example, that's what's great about Take 2 Minutes. Is any point in time you can text back to the chat bot, I need to meditate, and you're going to get a meditation. You can even ask for them specifically, like I want a meditation spoken by Marissa, and you're going to get one spoken by Marissa for that need. And I think now that's my primary use case for meditation, is to ask for one that I like, or go to my library of ones I've saved and reuse one that I know I like already.
That's amazing. You have all these resources at people's fingertips, and it's so accessible, and that you use texting, and that is just amazing. So if people can realize that, oh my gosh, it's at your fingertips with Take 2 Minutes, it's all there.
Right. Thank you. That's awesome.
So yeah.
All right, Heather, this next one is for you.
Okay.
So I'm trying to start eating healthier so I can have more energy and reduce anxiety. I've heard sugar, alcohol, and caffeine are the worst offenders. I love all 3, and I don't think I'll be able to cut them all out. So if I had to pick just one, which would be the most beneficial to cut or to cut first?
Okay. So I want to break that down a little bit and unpack it, because I want that person to go, thank you very much for being vulnerable and like asking these questions, right? So the break it down to where you say you don't think you'll be able to cut them all out. So right there, you have limiting beliefs in yourself, and really putting the power on things on the external. So maybe it's going to be doing the journaling with Take 2 Minutes and saying, okay, why am I grabbing for the caffeine? Why am I grabbing for the sugar? Instead of just like, like for me, I'm a food delivery person, right? A caterer. So when I'm like, oh my gosh, just became a habit for me to have a Diet Coke. Like it was just a thing, right? I don't need the Diet Coke. I don't need it. I was surely amped up enough, but it's like, it was a habit. So how do we form those habits? Go back to the beginning, identify, right? What's giving me that limiting belief? Do some journaling on Take 2 Minutes, look at videos, let it sink in, and really do that study on yourself, right? And then I would say from there, you can identify, okay, I'm not really needing the caffeine, or if I do, if I'm mentally foggy, that's not really working for me, because again, I wake up the next day, I'm mentally foggy, I start my whole routine again, and then the next day it's the same thing. So break the cycle and do what I call a reframe. And I would say cut out what you identify as maybe might be the easiest for you, like, or just try try one thing for 21 days is what we say. So what, Mark, do you have any input on the amount of days to form a habit?
It's 21 days, they say. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it can happen quicker. It can happen quicker, but usually 21 days is the status quo.
Okay, so 21 days, you got this. But keep going. And even if you fall back and like, oh my gosh, I had 2 cups of coffee, what, that's fine. But identifying and taking it day by day, because you get another 24 every day. Every day is a reset. And what I was just helping somebody with is that they are craving sugar. And I said, I have a little tonic that can help with that. It has turmeric. Oh, I forgot my turmeric powder soup. So I have turmeric powder and ginger, and I put them in with apple cider vinegar, okay, and a lemon. And you shake it all up, and you do a tonic shot, or if you're having a sugar craving, have it in your refrigerator ready to go. So it's apple cider vinegar, lemon, ginger, and turmeric. Okay. Shake it all up, have it in a glass jar. That's what I do. I have it in my fridge ready to go. And if I'm like, oh, sugar cravings, I mean, not to say I won't have, chocolate chip cookie or whatever. But yeah, if I'm like, oh man, if I'm really wanting to buckle down and have that self-discipline, it's like, okay, I'm gonna do the shot first. And 9 times out of 10, that sucker works to where I don't even remember what I was craving. It's like, oh, yeah. So I would say start with identifying the statement of, I don't think I can do it. So which one? Yes, you're right. They're all offenders equally. But I think maybe the caffeine, because it can dehydrate, and hydrating the brain. The brain is supposed to be in this mushy gushy setting, right? It's supposed to be wet. And when we're full of caffeine and not water, we're not operating in a dehydrated state. And there, you're not going to fire properly. The brain's not going to be able to communicate. You're going to have mental fog. You're going to maybe get headache or kind of this, I call it colic around your head and neck area. So I would focus on that. And then I think there's another question, we can talk about like combating the sugar with a simple approach each day.
Cool. Yeah, and the recipe for the tonic we can also put in the description below for anyone interested in that.
Perfect.
Real quickly, the tonic. I'm sorry. I thought you were going to move on. Go. You ask your question first.
Oh, it made me think about something too, because Mark and I have talked about this quite a bit, that last year I cut out alcohol completely.
Yep.
So kind of taking the approach that you specifically talked about, Heather, of trying to identify like what makes me feel like I need alcohol. And I had very bad social anxiety. So with alcohol, I first looked at that and then try to take myself out of situations that made me feel like I had to drink. And so staying home more made me feel like I didn't need it as much. It was less habitual than I thought. It was really when I went out. And then the next step was finding a support of people who either didn't drink or were supportive of the fact that I didn't drink. And then I was slowly able to kind of tackle each emotional issue without alcohol. And so I mean, I'd fallen down a little bit of an alcohol rabbit hole, I guess. That's not the right word, but when COVID hit, I think this happened to a lot of people where I just became more dependent on alcohol, and it was just something to do. And so quitting was more of like, I want to make sure that I can. And so I love what you said there of like, let's identify why you feel like you need these things. Caffeine, I think, is an obvious. People struggle to wake up. Alcohol is usually habitual, or there may be addiction issues with that. And then sugar, I mean, that's a big one too. There's a lot of reasons people eat sugar, whether it's cravings or the feel good that they get from eating sugar. So I love what you said there.
Yeah. And with sugar, so first of all, I want to say there's so many mocktails out there now, you guys. Like, oh my gosh. And I follow a group called Mastering Diabetes, and they literally had a whole night dedicated to a mocktail like live. It was so fun. So, I mean, and there's sober bars now that you can use kava and things like that. So, those are things too. I found that I loved, like, I was needing like a bubbly water. So I would do like a club soda, mix it with some cranberry juice or tart cherry juice, some lime, some lemons. And I mean, you put it in a fun glass and you've got yourself a mocktail, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then with sugar, we talk all the time about it's most likely an intestinal, yeah, yeast overgrowth. And that makes those yeast they're smart. They are stunning and cunning. And they like, oh, we're going to get you. And they make you crave sugar. And that's how they thrive. They have a party. They're like, woo, so fun. But if you cut off your sugar, they get mad and they erupt. They make you feel terrible because they want you to eat sugar. So you can outsmart them with fiber, the colors of the rainbow every day. And that's, again, a strategy I like to use is, I know it's simple, but you keep it simple. And by the end of the day, if you haven't had whatever color of the rainbow, get it in.
Yeah, and I feel like that we don't need to complicate things. I feel like just due to technology and innovation, we do. And it's fun
Yeah.
to see the new things people come up with, but when in doubt, keep it simple. So
Yeah. Go back to the roots. I love it.
Mark, did you have something?
I was going to say regarding alcohol, I've recently, well, a couple things. One is I recognize or associate with your comment about when you go out, you wanted to drink, because I know that as of late, I've eaten out more than I usually do. And when you eat out at a restaurant, sometimes it's easier to order an alcoholic drink if you're not careful. I know for me personally, quite often at a restaurant, some restaurants especially, the water in my mind doesn't even taste as good. So I almost like shy away from water. Then you have a soda as another option, which I don't like to drink soda, and you have alcohol. And so sometimes you go to alcohol. What I'm getting at, though, is more restaurants I found have either mocktails or NA beers. And so you can find NA beers at a lot of restaurants these days if you care for beer at all.
Yeah, that non-alcoholic beer, oh my gosh. It tastes just like a regular beer.
It really does, yeah. I enjoy those often, I would say, because it's an option at many restaurants these days, and it's something you're having a drink, you feel like you're a part of it, but it's NA.
That's
I do the same thing where I have my chosen brands of mocktails, but just to still feel like I have something, I'll put it in a wine glass. And I forget sometimes because I'll drink it with lunch. And then I'll be in a meeting and I'll like go to grab my drink. And I'm like, oh, wait, that looks bad. I can't do that. And then no one's going to believe you that there's not alcohol in it. So
Heather, you mentioned kava. I recently bought a kava mocktail, and I've only tried one. What are your thoughts on kava? Is it safe?
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's safe. I mean, as far as I know, in very small amounts.
Yeah.
And my literal drink, my kava drink, was literally this tall. It was tiny, and I sipped it because it can cause numbness, and
I
of
noticed
course,
that. Like a tingling on the tongue. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh gosh, no, this isn't cool. But they were like very well versed in there. I actually had it out in Idaho, and
Okay.
they were they're like, we make it, it's all natural, and I'm like, okay. And they're like, it's supposed to be tingly. I'm like, okay. But it was like one of those things, like, I'm not on certain medications, I'm not sure if there's any actions, but it was really cool. And I know that the sober bars serve that and some other things that, I think anything in a small amount would be cool, but it's supposedly much better than alcohol, of course.
2 questions about caffeine. One is I do drink green tea, and I don't know it's less caffeine. What are your thoughts on green tea?
Okay, so green tea or teas in general, we metabolize the caffeine differently than we do the caffeine in Coca-Cola or sodas and coffee.
Okay.
And so with the caffeine in coffee, we have that peak and then we have the crash that everyone talks about, right? With the teas, and especially, green teas that have other health benefits, your peak is much smaller. And so you don't have as much, but you're more level, you're more aware, and you still have that mental clarity, you're clicking. And so that's why it's such a great, alternative to, yes, it's caffeinated, but it's an alternative to coffee and sodas and things where it's added in.
It's awesome. So
Good.
For you, so real quickly, what I did was years ago, because I did drink coffee every morning, like most people, a lot of people do, I should say. And I wanted to get
Oh,
off
sure.
that. I switched to green tea, and what I did was kind of make my green tea similar to my coffee. So I use a splash of coconut creamer, and in it, so it kind of lightens it up, and that's my morning drink now. It's just green tea, and I use a green tea that has other herbs in it. I forgot exactly which one it is, but it is. I should know this. It's like pistachio, like real pistachios in it, and other things. But it's a really tasty green tea. It's not just solid green tea. And I've also
Yeah.
found for people who do want to try green tea, when I first tried it, I found it to be very bitter, and that's because I wasn't brewing it properly. When it comes to green tea,
Oh,
there's a top level of heat you want to use, and I think it's like 185. I'm not a tea expert, but my little tea bags tell me all about it. But ultimately, if I brew it properly, which is like 185 for 3 minutes, it comes out in my mind tasting much different than just 212 degrees, letting it sit there for 10 minutes. Big difference.
wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Another thing too that we haven't touched on is the mushroom blends, the mushroom
Yes.
coffee. And so some do have actual coffee added, like instant coffees, but there's others that don't have any coffee at all. And the benefits you get from a mushroom blend coffee is that they're full of adaptogens.
Right.
So you're drinking live food or from live food, and the adaptogens can help they help your microbiome and they help the brain, so they help with mental clarity, but they also help with decreasing anxiety and those things.
So for those who don't know, what is an adaptogen?
So an adaptogen is brilliant. It's a very smart live cell that or live thing that goes into your body, and mostly it gets down and it communicates with other cells and other bugs and flora in your microbiome, and it adapts. So it asks questions like, "Hey, what do you need? What do you need? Oh, okay, you need this," and it's all the whole time communicating with the brain. So much like I love to compare it to how like God created this earth, in my view, created the earth and there's a mushroom network across the globe. And so it communicates across the globe with this underground network, right? So that's the same thing. These mushrooms communicate in our bodies, in our homes, and it's mostly with the microbiome and the brain. So biome, brain. And that's, yeah. And it sounds weird, but we're mostly those kind of cells other than, the human cells. So, yeah.
Do you have any resources or anything that we can plug into the description for anyone interested in learning more about that?
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure Mark has a lot. You do a lot of research.
I do, yeah, and I have quite a few mushroom tinctures and mushroom powders. I try to take something every day that's mushroom based, definitely.
Okay, that'd be awesome.
Cool. Do we have time for two more questions?
I do.
Cool.
You okay,
All
Heather? Do
right.
you have a stop?
Oh yeah. No, I'm
Okay.
good. Okay.
So this one is also for you, Heather, and kind of ties into the first one, but looks like it focuses more on emotional eating. So what are some strategies for maintaining a healthy diet when experiencing emotional eating or cravings due to stress or anxiety?
Okay. And so that does piggyback very well on what we were just talking about. So avoiding those things where you're going to have the crash, the caffeine, the sugar, the alcohol, and really, and I recognize with myself, I'll give a story, for example. I notice like if I'm watching a movie or a new show or something, I want to have that hand to mouth, like popcorn or, and so I started having, and these are still frozen, but I started having frozen berries, like just, and it's really great. I mean, your fingers get blue with the blueberries, but it's really great because you have that hand to mouth still, and you're getting that blue and purpley color hue of the rainbow that's so beneficial, and it's eaten by the blue zones across the world where people live to be 100 and they're mostly plant based. It's a way to infuse plants into your life. And then also, it is full of fiber, right? So it's got these plant chemicals called phytochemicals, fiber, and the deep colors are really going to get in there in your body. And you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I just made it through a whole movie or a whole show, and I haven't had like salty popcorn or salty treats and that are void of nutrients really. And then whatever drink you might have. You know what I mean? So, and these are hydrating too. So talk about hydrating with food. You can eat your hydration. So that will help with decreasing that brain fog, and it helps the brain function better. So the better you hydrate, again, you're going to be experiencing more of that mushy gushy environment for your brain so it can fire and you'll be feeling better. And with the anxiety, but we learned this is that gratitude and anxiety cannot coexist in the brain. So if you start having these feelings of anxiety, even though you're maybe having a bowl of berries or you're trying to do your best with having more fiber, um, start doing the gratitude journal. It'll take 2 minutes. Start writing things down that you're grateful for. Start speaking it. And that way, that pathway is cut off. Just like when you're having the fiber food, it cuts off, it interferes with that pathway. So those are a couple things.
Do you
Cool.
eat
I
the
love that.
berries semi-frozen or you let them thaw fully? Because I found the
Yeah,
blueberries get mushy once they thaw thoroughly. I kind of like them
totally.
yeah.
Sorry, yeah, one of my berries was very mushy. I was like, oh darn. But yeah, I like to eat them frozen because
Okay.
yeah. But I mean, whatever. I mean,
Yeah, each
I'll eat
their
them
own,
whatever.
definitely. Yeah.
But yeah. Or make a smoothie. You can make a smoothie with them. That'd be fun. You could put mushroom powder in there, beet
Yeah.
powder. Oh my gosh, it could be a whole thing.
All right, last one. This is a take 2 minutes one. What are
Okay.
some practical ways to use take 2 minutes to stay motivated and accountable throughout my mental health journey?
So take 2 minutes, again, going back to text-based messaging, will send you nudges to help you keep going. So if you enter a gratitude statement right now, 12:30 Central Time is what it is for me roughly, and I enter a gratitude statement right now. Tomorrow around this same time, I'm going to get a nudge that says, hey, yesterday you made a gratitude statement around this time. Can you do it again now? And it's not going to be at 12:30 exactly the next day, but it tries to nudge you to keep doing things. Also, as part of the daily positive messages, quite often you're going to get a nudge on those things to try to do more than you are doing. And the system is relatively smart in the fact that it goes through and looks at your recent activities. And generally, one of two things happen. One is it's going to look at something you did recently and say, hey, you did this recently, let's do it again. Or two, it's going to look at things you haven't done in a while and say, why don't you try to do one of these things? So it's going to try to nudge you along the way to do those things. And motivation's interesting. I think Jamie had another good quote, and we talked about Jamie a couple times today, but it was that discipline's more important than motivation. So your discipline is what keeps you going. Motivation is tough because there's many mornings I wake up unmotivated to go walk my dogs. Something I love doing, something I need to do. My dogs need me to go take them for walks. But there's some mornings I just sit there in my chair with my green tea and think, I just want to sit here and do nothing today, right? And so it's a day I'm not motivated. And I think what I found though, and people can, maybe you two can relate to, is if you do it, get up, talk yourself into doing whatever it is you're not motivated to do. Once you finish later on, you're really glad you did it. You feel much better about yourself because you did it.
Oh yeah.
Yes, that routine.
Yeah.
I love that.
That is all we have for this week. I think these were really good. We missed Jamie, but I was excited to hear both of your stories and your takes on the two mental health ones. And Heather, I love everything you said. I like how we're getting more and more in depth with that whole mind body connection. And I take it and I write notes and then I go use it because my diet has not been great. And I'm like, I don't even know where to start. So this has actually even been beneficial for me. So thank you. And thank you,
Oh,
Marc, for giving us more of an insight into take 2 minutes. I know because there are so many different activities, even that can get overwhelming. So I think, doing these weekly is going to be great for people to really understand how to get the most out of it. And between, you, Heather and Jamie, just being able to like intertwine all three, I think is a great resource for our audience. So thank you.
absolutely.
Thank
Oh,
you
you're
for,
welcome.
yeah, thank you. And real quickly, Heather, do you mind restating your website so people know where to reach out to if they want to?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Well, yeah, my banner's down. It's heathergabbertsrdn.com. And yeah, just go on there, and there's a couple of buttons you can press for nutrition consultations, or if you want to email me, that'd be great.
Very good. Thank you again. This has been another live stream provided by Take 2 Minutes with Heather Gabbert. Ashley was our moderator. And for more information about Take 2 Minutes, you always go to take2minutes.org. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Next week.